Hello and welcome. Move the line presented by 4for4 Bets. I'm Ryan Noonan back with Connor Allen. As always, we are getting into the meat and potatoes of the offseason, Connor. Draft is fully behind us. For the most part, have rosters. I mean, there's some decent name free agents actually still kind of pending out there, but we are at the spot now where we can start talking about future markets, some divisional plays, some win totals, and that's what we're going to do today. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, not much. We're in the heart of the off season here, trying to still learn how to golf. So that's kind of been good. A little off season project when I get a chance.
New
Um,
sticks. I'm excited. I haven't seen the new sticks yet, so I'm excited.
oh yeah, I
about
got new sticks. I learned how to drive actually fairly well, so I can get that going. I'm significantly improved. So I've been in the Sims. First time shot a plus 54, so that was not great. Since then, in the plus 30 ranges. So we're approaching 100. So it's getting better.
That's huge.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't downright abysmal.
Yeah. No, that's I mean, considering you were playing, been part of the journey, been helping the process. I saw those early rounds. We've played numerous rounds together, and you were playing with basically some of the first iterations of golf clubs, especially from like an off the tee standpoint. Like the drivers and the woods that were involved were, I don't know, not great and very, very old. And like you're still managing your way, competing with peers that had new technology and a lot more experience. So I feel good about where you can continue to get the game to. I'm excited about this. This is good. It's a good off-season stuff.
Yeah, coming soon. But excited to talk some football too. It's a lot of bets to be made, I think, right now.
A lot of bets to be made. We want you to come and hang out with us. Head over to 4for4.com/plans. Scoop up the betting subscription. It is the best way to get access to all that we're doing at 4for4. Gets you access to the Discord where all the official plays are pushed out. Again, great like-minded community that is just grinding stuff all year. Really, really appreciate that group. Check it out. We're going to continue to bet. We have NBA draft bets coming soon from our guy VR. VR was a prominent member of this spot here during the NFL draft season, but we have NBA stuff coming real soon. I think we've both been a little bit in the weeds in that. So we're, I think, going to be prepared to contribute to that as well. Obviously, VR has had a lot of success. Basically anything that you could bet draft wise, you can check that out. So get the betting sub, you get access to that. And then everything we do for the football season, again, you're still playing season long, playing DFS, best ball. We got all sorts of tools for that. Check it out. 4for4.com/plans. All right, Connor, probably, just buzz through a couple of win totals today. This market's been up for a little bit, but I still think we know this is a very inefficient market overall, year over year. Just massive swings. I remember our guy, Drew Dinsick, the whale capper, did some work on this a couple years ago. Like on average, you're like 2.5 wins off of the number. So you might look at it and feel like it's a pretty efficient market, and it just isn't. And part of that is the nature of football in general, right? We know that it is, especially, week to week can be very difficult to predict. You get into the, 50,000 foot view and want to kind of project out how these teams are going to be schedule wise and all those things. It gets a little bit tricky, but for the most part, like I said, we have rosters. For the most part, what I think we're going to have for a lot of these teams, and feel pretty good about taking some swings and some stuff that's currently out there in the market. So we're going to go around. We're going to share a couple each. I'll let you get started with a win total for us to, something you bet, something you're kind of eyeballing, you want to see, good price, good number. Kick us off. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to have two today, and I'm going to release these in our Discord as well. The first one's going to be for a full unit, second one half unit. My first one that I'm going with here is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders under 7 wins. You can get this at even money at Caesars right now, the flat 7, not the 7.5, or you can get 6.5 at plus money. But generally I prefer the 7 here, getting that a little extra half hook. This roster still has a ton of holes, and to be honest, I'm not really buying the Antonio Pierce team. They have major question marks at quarterback, offensive line, linebacker, running back, and they have cornerback depth issues. For example, their outside corner is Jacorian Bennett, graded out as the 124th out of 127 corners. Their line has like a mismatch of players that at left guard, and right tackle still aren't very good. The defensive line looks pretty solid. They added Christian Wilkins, they still have Max Crosby, so that's definitely a strength. But then we go over to the offensive side of the ball. Their offensive coordinator is now Luke Getsy. One of the worst offensive coordinators in the league. It was very clear last year, like Justin Fields is not infallible. There's plenty wrong with Justin Fields, but It's the route concepts and the blocking schemes that got me. Like, there are guys running the same routes basically on top of each other, sitting 3 yards away from each other. Like there's no way that you can complete passes to both these guys. And it was just confusing on a week-to-week basis. How is this even possible? And it wasn't accidents by like the receivers every time. It is very clearly the scheming there. So I think this could be a disaster offensively for them, especially if the offensive line doesn't shake out. If it shakes out to be average, maybe they go run heavy, maybe they're fine. But then the quarterback, you have Gardner Minshew right now, minus 150 to be the favorite over Aiden O'Connell. I mean, he's just an average to below average quarterback, and the weapons are great. Sure, Devontae Adams is good. He's getting a little bit older. They have a rookie tight end, Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers is fine. But again, if you have offensive line issues, if you have scheme issues, which I think they have massive scheme issues, that's a problem here too. And then everyone talks about their late season resurgence with Antonio Pierce, where he went 5-4. They beat the Giants, the Jets, again, no Aaron Rodgers, the Chargers in the Brandon Staley farewell game, where it was basically sayonara. He was already on his way out. And then the Chiefs in what was the biggest 3-week net rest advantage of the season, apparently, on Christmas, where Deep Value Better did some research around that. So it's like rolling 3-week net rest is essentially the only thing that he found to be statistically relevant outside of, because people cite net rest for the whole season and stuff like that. I don't think that really fully matters on a holistic scale, but when you find certain spots, it absolutely matters. And so,
Sure.
like this was one of the biggest of the season. And then, the Raiders won that game. Then they beat the Broncos. So that was like their run where everyone was like, oh, Antonio Pierce is the guy. So I wasn't impressed. I think that their floor is extremely low. Like, I'm going to bet them to finish with the worst record in the league, given their schedule. They're favored in one game this season, and that's at home against Carolina. So, I mean, I think the under 7's nice. I think that if the floor falls out from under them, like maybe Devontae Adams requests a trade or something like that, like the floor here is outrageously low.
The Chiefs game was the one that is the early turnovers in that game. I believe it was the game where Aiden O'Connell, I don't think he had a completion in the last 3 quarters of the game. It was something wild like that too, right? There was just like, there was some, again, the defense held up, got some early turnovers and scored off of them, and then just held on for dear life. It's not like they, and again, they went into Arrowhead, whatever they call it nowadays, beat the eventual Super Bowl champs. But to your point, like rest advantage in a spot where I think is impactful does matter. Looking at the unique 3 within the division, one of the tougher schedules in the division. Jacksonville at Miami at the Rams, not great. As you mentioned too, like you don't have an answer at quarterback. That is a big deal. They can continue to be interesting defensively because the defensive line is so good. But like you said, like they have to be able to generate pressure, get home with it, because the back half isn't great. Like, I love Nate Hobbs is a like tackle producer at the cornerback position, not a great cover corner, and more of a slot hybrid safety guy than like a number 1 lockdown type corner. So, and he's the best of the bunch. It's not great in the back half. That's why we were looking at like draft selection, like kind of surprised that they went with Brock Bowers, thinking of all the team needs that they have. But again, he probably shouldn't have been there too. I think we like that, player as a prospect. So yeah, I like the Raiders. I'm fine with it too. I probably would take the plus money at 6.5. But again, I get the push. You get the extra win. They have to have a whole nother win basically for you to lose the bet versus pushing the bet at 7. So yeah, don't hate that at all.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's one of those things where the Raiders have kind of had my number, I think, the last 3 or 4 years, especially in the sides and totals market. They've kind of been a team that I've struggled with. And this year, kind of after diving in a little bit deeper, I just feel better and better, especially because we have like kind of the coaching thing that I think we can fade, some of the narrative there. And like, I just don't think that they're materially better, in a lot of ways. And the way their schedule shakes out, it seems pretty tough.
Yeah, with you on that one. I will probably tail that there for sure. All right. I think you know what I'm doing here. I've not been quiet. I will probably continue to be loud about my love for this Colts roster. And you can get over 8.5 wins on Indy at plus money, plus 105, over 8.5 on Caesars currently, minus 104 for over 8.5 on FanDuel. This is a drastically improved roster, continuing to improve. I think just by drafting a ton of athletes, that ends up working. You hit on some of these guys, and when they become really good players, you get rewarded. So obviously the X factor here is the quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Can he stay healthy? We obviously saw he struggled with that last year in his debut, but the ceiling, I think, is absolutely massive with who he is as a player, how he can impact defensive schemes, and how they have to address this team offensively. He played 2 snaps all season last year with Jonathan Taylor. 2. Taylor missed the first 4 weeks. That week 5 game against Tennessee, Richardson got hurt early in that game, and the ability to do things with that dynamic run game RPO option is massive. Now, for the last couple of years, I felt like the Colts offensive line was massively overrated. Everyone just thinks of Quentin Nelson being like a dog, and they think it's a great offensive line. Well, now it is. It's an underrated offensive line. It's a top 5 unit in the league. If you're looking at just PFF grades, you could probably make a case that it's a top 3 offensive line in the league. Both of the tackles are fantastic. Braden Smith, probably like a top 5 run blocker in the league. Bernhard Raymond, a guy kind of fell in the draft to the second round. Thought he was going to be a late first round pick a couple years ago. Fantastic year, premier pass rushing or pass blocking offensive lineman. And then the interior, you still have Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, one of the best centers in the league. This is a team that's going to be able to win up front, protect Richardson, and then allow him to create and run behind this offensive line too with Jonathan Taylor. And then they go out in the draft, add A.D. Mitchell, the guy, again, everyone thought was going to be a first-round pick, slid a little bit. Michael Pittman emerged last year. This team won 9 games with 13 Gardner Minshew starts last year. Now we just need them to win 9 games again. They also get Jelani Woods back, who missed the entire year with injury, another just big-bodied freak or tight end athlete that they've just kind of compiled over the last couple of years. And the defense is really interesting. They have arguably the best defensive front in the league. They have 3 edge rushers that are significantly above average if Laiatu Latu comes in and is that guy right away. DeForest Buckner, arguably one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. Grover Stewart is just kind of a run-stopping mauler next to him. And they just needed a little bit of help out of the secondary. You have Kenny Moore, one of the best slot guys in the league. Juju Brents is a guy I loved in last year's draft, missed some time, but again, is going to be their corner 1. If he's that guy, they just kind of need to get an answer on the other side. And this team is good. If they're healthy. Now, the schedule is pretty easy too. By far the easiest schedule in the AFC South. The unique 3 at Denver, at the Giants, and Pittsburgh. And when you look at the back end of the schedule too, there's some wins here down the stretch. They got a late bye, I believe, week 14 bye. Week 13 before the bye, Patriots. Then after the bye, Broncos, Titans, Giants. Week 18 is home to the Jags. So there's some wins there down the stretch if, again, Anthony Richardson is upright. So I love plus money on this team to win 9 games. I think they can make the playoffs. I think they can win this division. But again, there's competition there. So I think all those teams in the division are becoming a little bit more interesting. Again, Titans have made some splashes here. But yeah, the Colts, I think the upside here is pretty massive with Richardson staying upright. So again, big if.
Yeah, no, you have me sold on it, and I think the roster is good. And I was a pretty big hater entering last year, and I changed my tune pretty quick. Just what we saw immediately with just the scheming from Steichen, with our Anthony Richardson's ability to play within that scheme, immediately, just to me, it was okay, this guy can do it. Now, Dan Rivera brings up in the chat here, fun fact, Anthony Richardson only has 11 quarters of NFL work so far. His sample in college was not that big either. But that being said, I don't know. Maybe I've seen enough in 11 quarters, but I'm optimistic about what he can do as long as he stays healthy. I am a little concerned about the comments that he said, that they're like, are you going to play safer? And he's like, no, I'm going to play how I want to play. Any thoughts on that? Because in my opinion, it's a little bit of red flag, but maybe if he stays healthy, he could win MVP.
Yeah. Offensive player of the year. So look, he got concussed. He got concussed on his second rushing touchdown in the game against the Titans or against the Texans in the first quarter. And we know the concussion protocol, so he missed some time there. And then, on a scramble, a dislocated shoulder. And I think they were probably he probably could have brought him back in season and just didn't want to, which was the smart thing to do. So yeah, you can find ways to argue either side of injury history. Cannot argue against the fact that Dan presents, right? He just didn't play a lot. But I think we all saw enough, and I buried the lead. Shane Steichen I think is a talent maximizer in what he was able to do with that team with really just, I mean, like Josh Downs was an exciting emerging prospect that he maybe exceeded expectations there. Michael Pittman just got peppered with targets. Now, if you got year 2 for Downs, you add AD Mitchell, it makes it a little bit easier. Like they really like Jelani Woods, who really emerged as a rookie the year before he went down. There's just more optionality. And I think Steichen is going to do a good job at helping Richardson be the best version of whatever he can be. Again, that's the caveat is, look, do we have to have 7 games of Joe Flacco this year, who's the new backup quarterback?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be great, but like that wouldn't be awful, right? Like
fun.
He was okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm encouraged by the defense. They have a lot of talent. I think they could be a real problem up front with how they can really disrupt both interior pass rush and at the edges. And they have 3 guys. So the ability to rotate, keep guys fresh. Yeah, I'm just excited about the Colts team, that I think has kind of won the drafts the last handful of years.
What do you think the best, do you think that their range of outcomes is high enough that they can win the AFC Super Bowl division? Because you're looking at prices for the division, plus 330 at FanDuel on the Colts to win the division. I don't mind that because I think they're probably closer to the Texans than the market suggests, and maybe even better than the Jaguars straight up. And then we're looking at to win the AFC. We're like, it's like 35-1. I mean, it's not like it's 15-1 or even 60-1. I mean, it's a good bit longer that if they make the playoffs, I think that anything can happen. Obviously, just AFC is just very, very tough. And then 66-1, 65-1 to win the Super Bowl. So is there anything that you're going to be sprinkling on in addition to, or is it just the win total because you think that their range of outcomes is just a little bit higher, but still pretty tight?
I like the division look. I think that's a good call at 330 to your point, because I do think they are closer to the Texans than the market suggests. And I think they are probably better than the Jaguars, to be honest. I have fewer questions about the defense, to be honest, than I do with what's going on in Jacksonville. They have a new coordinator that actually Ryan Nielsen, who was with the Saints in the last years I think did a great job with the Falcons, is there in Jacksonville now. That's going to be interesting too. But they're probably safer because we think the quarterback situation is probably safer. But I think the upside is there. And again, in terms of winning the AFC, tell me Pat Mahomes is out for the year, then that opens up a bunch of stuff. But I have a hard time making to win the AFC bets knowing that Mahomes is still alive and playing football. So, but 35 is to win the Super Bowl price, right? And that's
right.
But that's kind of it, right? Is that the AFC is so loaded. So yeah, I'm just bullish on the team because I think the ceiling is really high and way better than an 8.5, win total suggests.
Yeah, it's fair. I like it.
Yeah. All right, your second one. What do you got?
Yeah, we've talked about it already a little bit here, but I'm going to make it official. Unfortunately for Noonan, I'm going to go with Patriots under 5 wins. This is 5 flat at Caesars, 4.5 plus money at other spots. I think both are solid. The roster as a whole isn't outrageously bad, but there's just a couple of issues that I think are specifically a problem. And so it's, the depth at the offensive line specifically, where they have a couple of good starters penciled in, on the right side and interior, but left tackle, they let go of Trent Brown. So they're going to let Okorafor and maybe Caden Wallace duke it out of left tackle, which is, again, left tackle is a very pivotal position in the offensive line, especially with throwing the ball. And throwing the ball, I think, is going to be the biggest problem for the Patriots, which is very, very important, especially when you consider their schedule. But right now, focusing on their kind of passing the ball, the Jacoby Brissett's minus 300 to start the season. So we're probably going to see him, I would guess, for a couple weeks, throwing to Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, and then they drafted Jalen Polk. I would say I'm higher on than market on Demario Douglas and Kendrick Bourne, but they're not alphas. They're just guys who can separate in short to intermediate spaces at best. And then Jalen Polk, same thing. Again, I like Jalen Polk. He performed to Washington, but it was a very different system, performing alongside Rome Odunze, and then another good receiver that was drafted in an offense that was wide open compared to the Patriots offense, which I think is going to be a lot of under center, 2 wide receiver, maybe 3 wide receiver sets, probably some jumbo tight end stuff. So, I think this is one of the worst pass catching groups in the league. There's not really much room about it, unfortunately. And you're pairing that with Jacoby Brissett, who we know is a bottom tier starting quarterback, or Drake May, who I think has upside. So in my mind, the way the Patriots are good is that Drake May has to be good. That in my mind is the only solution, because the schedule is just so tough. I mean, it's one of the toughest schedules in the league. They started the season against the Bengals, Seahawks, Jets, 49ers, Dolphins, and Texans. They play just 2 games all year against teams with a win total less than 8. So literally every team that they're faced to play is a fringe playoff contender. I would, except for the Titans and Seahawks, who I don't even know. Maybe they are fringe playoff contenders, especially the Seahawks. Titans, not really as much probably. But like they're not bad teams. Like they're not like bottom 3 teams. They're like still games that are an uphill climb for the Patriots to win. Every other game is against a fringe playoff contender. Just brutal outlook. So I think from that aspect, it's tough for me to envision a scenario where like, okay, unless they get the passing game going or the running game is just absolutely cooking and the defense is like flirting with top 10 numbers, that's the only way they're like an average team this year. Any other scenario, we're talking about 3 or 4 wins. And so, I just really struggle to see how it comes together. I know that this is probably sad for you. The future I think is somewhat bright if Drake May can be okay. I know it's a tough scene right now for those of you who are not watching on YouTube. Noonan is touching his Patriots memorabilia in his house right now because he's a big Pats homer. But I know you probably won't bet it because you just like physically can't. But any thoughts on the Patriots this year?
I don't see 4 or 5 wins on the schedule. I think it's really hard to drum up a scenario where that's an option. Now, again, so the counter argument to play devil's advocate is last year, without their 2 best defensive players, Christian Gonzalez looked like the real deal in the first couple of weeks, went down early with injury. Matthew Judon's basically within the same game, same thing, out for the year. And they still were pick your metric. It was top 10 defensive unit, top 5 in some metrics. Now, that was really surprising. We did not think that would be the case. I also have to think that even though like Gerard Mayo stays on, there's some continuity with the defensive coaching side of the ball. Let's not pretend that like Bill Belichick isn't like the greatest defensive mind of all time and is no longer there. And like, yeah, this is Mayo's defense, but like if Bill has his hand in any unit more than anything, it was the defensive side of the ball, and he's gone. So like, again, I know Mayo's been there and that's still his thing, but like we're fooling ourselves if we think that like Bill is just completely out to pasture and didn't have an impact on how good that defense was last year. It's not the case. So they're going to get everyone back. It's still a really decent defense. But like the pressure on them to keep the team in games is massive. And to your point, if you can't throw the football successfully in this league, and create explosives, it's really hard to win football games in a conference, in a division that's loaded with teams that can do it. So like last year, the roof crumbled in onto itself when Kendrick Bourne went down. Like that should never be the case. And it would be the similar situation this year. Like they need Kendrick Bourne to be massively impactful. Like, yeah, okay, we added Javon Baker in the draft. Like, okay, but do we expect him to like step in and contribute right away? It's not great. It's not a great situation. So like Cole Strange probably misses the start of the year. Supposed to be one of your former first round pick interior offensive lineman, not healthy. So yeah, I mean, it's not a great path. And as you mentioned, the schedule it's just so significantly more brutal than anyone else's schedule. And that's a tough draw when you're like coming in off of being one of the worst teams in the league as well. So like you should have an easier schedule. And that's just absolutely not the case. What happened in New England, at Cincinnati, at Chicago, and the Chargers are the unique 3. And then they play the AFC South and the NFC West. Just again, so much harder than everyone else in the division. The Jets have one of the easiest schedules. Dolphins top 10 schedule in terms of projected win totals for their opponents. So yeah, tough year in New England. Picking at the top of the draft again next year seems very likely. And I like Drake May. Think it could be interesting, but the Pats are not beating the Bears by 30. Jeff, I'm sorry. Jeff in the chat.
Not happening.
Blasphemy. So I want to be optimistic, but just to be realistic too. This is just not, it's a bottom 5 roster.
One other thing too that I was thinking about was like how Drake May stylistically fits with these wide receivers. And it's just like it's not the same way at all. Like these are guys where like if you had Tom Brady still at the helm, he could probably make it work with these guys because it's just, they're just, you've put them in the right area, you're able to get the ball out quick, just zip, and get players open in like short situations. You could probably piece something together, obviously. That's just not who Drake May is. Like he's a playmaker. He's a, gunslinger. He's got great arm talent. He can run the ball, which is great for upside, but you need guys who can also create explosives along with that. Like he can't just do it all himself. And so like stylistically, it just doesn't even add up either. So I don't know. I have a lot of questions too. And I believe they brought over, what was it? Van Pelt, right? It was, or the OC from Cleveland.
Who didn't even call plays in Cleveland, by the way. It's
what?
Stefanski's offense, right? He's not even calling plays in Cleveland,
And too, like Cleveland has relied on like a sick offensive line forever. Like their offense functions like, I mean, for as long as they've been there, off of like good offensive line play, they've run the ball well and then being able to do other stuff off that. Like again, the Patriots offensive line, I think, has some questions on it. So like that whole basis of that like just doesn't really add up either. So I don't know, just a ton of questions here. I don't know if I'll bet on them to have the worst record because that price is probably like 6 to 1, something like that, 5 to 1, which I don't know if I want to like bet the chalk in these markets, but alt win unders, I don't know, like a 3.5 under would be, I'm not opposed.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hate that it's the case, but it's the case. And no one can take away the 20 years we had, Connor. But again, this is what the inverse side that is got to come along at some point. And this is what us older Patriots fan remember growing up with. This is kind of where the organization was for a long time. So
yeah,
they're going to struggle. It's not going to be great. I'm optimistic with Drake May. I think we know who he is because I think he was forced to play a ton of hero ball at Carolina because he didn't really have any skill position guys to elevate him. So yeah, wait and see. I'm cautiously optimistic. It just path is harder without like a clear guy, like a clear separator, like Pop Douglas in the slot. That can't be it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually love Drake May just because he played craps after he got drafted. Like that, he'll forever be a legend in my eyes. Like you can tell me he like goes to jail the next day. I don't care. He's a legend. Like he's anyone who goes with their family directly to Caesars after they get drafted is just a boss. Like I'm all in.
Last one for me. I have a couple. I'm back and forth. And they're both. I think you're on board probably with both of them. The Panthers opened at 4.5 and have taken some over money, and now 5.5 is available. And I don't understand that. I again think this continues to be a bottom roster in the league. So under 5.5 at plus money, you can get under 5.5 plus 104 on FanDuel. Obviously contingent on whatever happens, whatever you think Bryce Young is. But I still think his weaponry is subpar. It's the same case as the Pats. The offensive line's maybe a little bit better. They spent some money in free agency to improve it, but it's still not a great unit. Now, the defensive side's maybe a little bit better. I still have questions there too. Like you need JC Horn to be the guy and stay on the field. That's something he's really, really struggled with. They've added some new guys at edge to kind of replace Brian Burns. Again, you're taking away essentially your best defensive player, and you sell me on this being a great unit. Derek Brown's awesome in the interior. Clowney had a nice year last year in Baltimore. I mean, that could be scheme and coach related as well. Elijah Evero is a good defensive coordinator, so maybe you continue to get some stuff out of him. DJ Wonnum comes over from Minnesota, really good there last year as well. So that group is okay, but like the back end is a lot of question marks, especially at corner. And then again, like I said, like it's still Adam Thielen. They added Deontay Johnson, who may be getting out of there, out of Pittsburgh. Maybe Dave Canellis is a talent maximizer. I was anti Tampa last year and went up against Dave Canellis, who's now the head coach, who was the offensive coordinator at Tampa last year. Maybe he can unpack something here with Bryce Young. I just don't really see it. 5.5 feels like too much, and 5.5 on Denver feels like too much as well. And I think you kind of agree there as well. So we can unpack Carolina first and then kind of go back and forth on Denver. But any thoughts on Carolina first?
Yeah, so it was RAS, Red Angle Sports, released the over on 4.5, which moved it to 5.5. But now we're looking at 5.5 plus money. I mean, I don't know. I struggle with that. I guess my only concern is the Canales stuff because, I mean, we were dead. I mean, not dead wrong, but pretty much dead wrong last year.
I was dead wrong with Tampa Bay. I thought they were going to be not good.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, he made the most out of an offensive line that was what we consider to be not good. It was just kind of a scheming thing that I think he helped. I mean, make the most out of Baker Mayfield, who was like literally dead in the water, prior, I think, heading into the Bucks. Like, I still don't think he's very good, but whatever. He played really well. And so like, I don't know, maybe Bryce Young can get something together. Adam Thielen like basically died at the end of last season. Xavier Legette, I just think it was a terrible first round pick in terms of like what they spent money or like what they spent draft capital on, like that high in the draft. I think he's fine, but he's not like an immediate contributor. So I don't know. I'm pretty low on this team in general. Under 5.5 is interesting, but the Dave Canales stuff, it's almost kind of like the Shane Steichen stuff last year. I'm trying to learn my lesson of, like some of these
Yeah.
coaches just are great coaches. Like, I don't know, like they figure it out, they have an edge, and they're going to implement that. So, I mean, he is talking like he's a massive boomer though. He's like, we're going to run the ball a ton, we're going to do this. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just don't know if the defense is good enough to keep up with that or the offense is good enough to run the ball consistently. But that's my only concern there. And then Denver, yeah, I mean, just tons of concern. I mean, do you want to go in more to them? I mean, they just have concerns. It's such a great, test of like, if Sean Payton's system, air quotes, matters. Like, if it matters and he's able to implement it and Bo Nix looks reasonable, then they'll probably win 7 or 8 games. But I just feel like that's such a very, very unlikely outcome.
Yeah, I think that's really it. It's a bottom 3 roster.
Yeah, like they don't have talent. I mean,
they don't have talent.
Damari Mathis is still going to play for them. I mean, is that real? Like, he's literally the worst corner in the league.
Yeah, he won't start. But he might be needed. Look, they went out and they added guys that couldn't get on the field for other teams last year. Levi Wallace lost his job basically in Pittsburgh. They messed around with where to put him, and like, he played a little bit because there were other injuries, but at this point, like, he's a big-bodied corner and just lost his step a little bit. So he's going to be needed to play on the opposite side of Patrick Surtain. That's who again is like the talent on the team. I don't want to throw you under the bus at all, because you don't spend time in the weeds on the defensive side like I do. Can you name an edge rusher for Denver?
Well, I can because I'm looking at PFF.
Okay,
we have
it's not good. It's not a good group.
Baron. Oh, I guess he's like a left, like a linebacker edge.
Yeah, it's an edge. Yeah.
And then Cooper.
It's not a good group.
Jonathan Cooper. I don't really know much about these guys.
Yeah, that's the point, right? They've been there, and you don't like know them off the top of your head because they're not making impactful plays week in and week out. It's not like, oh, they were able to like win a game because they generated so much pressure up front. It's not a good unit. They have their linebackers really struggle in coverage. That's going to be an issue for them as well. The interior of the defensive line isn't good. So like, yeah, you have Patrick Surtain, who's fantastic, but like the rest of it is not great. Brandon Jones starting safety because they let Justin Simmons go. Brandon Jones couldn't find the field really in Miami for the last couple of years, struggled to stay healthy, and then was behind other guys when he was healthy. He was like the third, rotational safety. Is going to be getting significant snaps. PJ Locke, second-year guy, starting now as well. So offensive line is good, but like this team does not feel like they're built to come from behind at all, and it doesn't feel like a defense that can keep the teams in games. Like Bo Nix has to be the guy. They have to get up early, run the ball really well with Williams and Perine, and then just kind of control it. So like low scoring games is their path, but I don't think the defense can like supplement that and like really sustain that for them. Cause I don't think we had like Josh Reynolds is your big splash in the offseason to be like a field stretcher and a difference maker. I don't see it in that division where again, they do have the Raiders, but I think we think the Chargers are probably a little bit improved. The Chargers schedule is pretty soft. The Chiefs still exist. So like 5.5 at plus money on the under at plus 120, under 6 flat on Caesars is minus 140. I'd go with the plus 120 under 5.5. I think this is another very, very viable look. Just not a lot of playmakers. Doesn't feel like a team that can compete in the way football is played nowadays. Unless look drastically wrong on Bo Nix, and Sean Payton is that guy. He might be. He also had Drew Brees, who was pretty damn good. And again, like a defense that could hold up, and I don't think he has that this year.
I think it's funny because this team is almost transforming into Drew Brees early year like teams where the defense was just so bad and they had like 1 or 2 good guys, and then like Drew Brees just had to will them to any win that they could have, but they don't have Drew Brees. So it's like one of those where that's a pretty important missing piece there. And on top of that, like they don't have, I mean, the receivers, I think this is one of the worst receiving cores in the league too. I mean, we're talking about like Cortland Sutton, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds. I mean, it's just like a bunch of Jags, honestly. Like I think Cortland Sutton is fine. I mean, like he's okay, I guess, as like a, quote alpha, but
Sure.
like The rest of the guys are very unproven. I mean, Marvin Mims couldn't crack the field at all last year. I mean, they had Lil Jordan Humphrey playing over Marvin Mims at times. I mean, this is crazy. So I don't know. I struggle to see it with the Broncos, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty comfortable fading them. It's not something I'm going out of my way to bet, but I think that if I had to take a bet, it'd probably be the under.
Yeah, plus money, plus 120, 5.5 under on FanDuel is, I think a viable look. So those are kind of my favorites, and yours as well. So I think that's a nice way to get started, right? Some of these win totals, again, they're out there. Shop a little bit. We have a tool on the site, again, 44.com. Search around, you can find, futures tool. You can look at any of the player futures, team futures, win totals, division prices, all that stuff on the site as well. So, all right, Connor, good stuff, man. Anything else with people before we wrap?
We will be having a couple more announcements in the coming weeks. We have hired a couple other people. Super excited about that. We'll have more bets in the Discord, everything. So yeah, announcements to come. Stoked about that. Brought in some really great analysts. I think they'll help, change the game for us. So excited.
Yep. Excited about that. Stay tuned. Follow on Twitter for that. And again, if you're hanging out on YouTube now, or wherever you're listening, subscribe to wherever you are. 4for4 bets on YouTube. Move the line wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate that. We'll continue to come in here. Yeah, kicker futures, maybe, Jeff. I don't know. I'm trying to convince Connor to bet kicker props this year. I think he's tossing around the idea. Maybe use your help here. So yeah, we just want to continue to find unique ways that we can find edges to win, because we find that winning is fun. We find that subscribers like winning as well. So we're going to try to continue to find ways to do that. So subscribe, appreciate it. Let us know in the chat what your favorite win total of the next time. Thanks, everyone.